In a quaint little town nestled between rolling hills and lined with cobblestone streets, a most peculiar case unfolded that would leave its mark in history. It was a trial unlike any other, a trial that would challenge the very nature of reality itself. The defendant, a man named Harold Hargrove, his claim that his shadow had been stolen. Now you might be wondering what leads a person to assert that something as intangible as a shadow could be taken from them. Can you believe this actually happened? As strange as it may seem, Harold was determined to seek justice for what he felt was an outrageous theft. But how does one prove that their shadow has been unlawfully seized? Harold Hargrove was an ordinary man, or at least he started off that way. A middle-aged accountant known for his meticulous nature and love for gardening, he spent most of his days in the office crunching numbers. But every evening as the sun dipped low in the sky, he would stroll through the park, where he found solace among the trees and flowers. It was during one of these walks that Harold first noticed something odd. He had been watching the sunset, feeling the warmth of the fading light on his skin when he turned to glance at the ground. To his shock, he discovered his shadow was missing. Yes, missing. He looked around, bewildered, as if it had simply vanished into thin air. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. But day after day, as he continued his evening walks, the same bizarre occurrence happened. Harold was not one to let such a puzzling mystery go unsolved. Driven by curiosity, he began investigating. He spoke to friends, family, and even strangers in the park, attempting to unravel the enigma surrounding his missing shadow. But to his dismay, no one could offer him any answers. It was then that Harold decided to take matters into his own hands. He would file a lawsuit against the unknown entity he believed had stolen his shadow. As the news of Harold's lawsuit spread, people were both amused and intrigued. A trial focused on shadows, it was the talk of the town. The courtroom was soon filled with a blend of curious townsfolk, eager journalists, and skeptical legal experts. When the trial began, the judge, a stern woman by the name of Judge Martha Calloway, took her seat at the bench, raising her gavel to silence the murmurs. She knew this case would be one for the books, and she was determined to maintain order amidst the chaos. Harold, visibly nervous, stood before the court, his heart racing as he prepared to present his case. He began by recounting the harrowing tale of his stolen shadow, explaining the emotional turmoil he had experienced. "I feel incomplete," he declared, his voice trembling. "It's as if a part of me has been taken away. My shadow was not just a reflection, it was a part of my identity." The audience, captivated by his passion, leaned in closer, but soon laughter erupted in the courtroom. Could a shadow really hold such significance? In an attempt to bolster his case, Harold called upon witnesses. He invited his best friend George to the stand. George, a jovial man with a tendency to exaggerate, recounted their shared experiences in the park, emphasizing how Harold had always been the man with the shadow. "Without it, he's just, well, Harold," George laughed, trying to lighten the mood. But as the laughter settled, he added seriously, "But I did see the change in him. He's not the same, he's lost." This emotional appeal resonated with some members of the jury, who began to see Harold's plight as more than just a bizarre claim. Next, Harold brought forth a local artist, Clara, who painted shadows as a part of her work. Clara described how shadows could symbolize one's essence, the darker parts of their being, and how losing a shadow could equate to losing a piece of one's soul. The courtroom was silent. Could there be truth in Harold's assertions? Then came the prosecution's turn. A sharp, confident lawyer named Robert Langston stepped forward, ready to dismantle Harold's claims with a smile that suggested he found the entire affair utterly ridiculous. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, "let us not forget we are discussing shadows, a mere absence of light. There is no tangible evidence to support Mr. Hargrove's claims. Shadows are not possessions, they are a natural phenomenon." His words hung in the air, and the laughter in the courtroom returned. Harold's face fell, but he remained determined. As the trial progressed, Robert continued to present his arguments with an air of superiority. He pulled out diagrams illustrating the scientific principles behind shadows, attempting to illustrate how they could not be stolen. The crowd murmured in agreement. After all, the concept was absurd, yet Harold remained resolute. He took the stand again, this time with a different approach. "What if I told you," he began, his voice steady and low, "that I have proof?" The courtroom fell silent, anticipation brimming in the air. "I have tracked down the shadows of others, I've done my research, and I believe I know who is responsible for my loss." Gasps echoed through the audience, and Robert's confidence faltered for a moment, his brow furrowing in disbelief. Harold continued, "There's a man known in our town as the Shadow Collector. He roams the streets at night, preying on those who are vulnerable, stealing their essence, their shadows." A hush fell over the courtroom. Who was this mysterious figure? With renewed vigor, Harold described the encounters he had had with the Shadow Collector, painting a vivid picture of a tall, dark figure lurking in the alleys, whispering promises of illumination and enlightenment. "I believe he has taken my shadow," Harold insisted, his voice rising, "and I want him brought to justice." The jury, now invested in the unfolding drama, exchanged glances. Could there really be a shadow collector amongst them? The prosecution, however, was quick to counter. Robert dismissed Harold's claims as mere fantasy. "This is a courtroom, not a storybook," he exclaimed, frustration evident. Without concrete evidence, Mr. Hargrove's assertions are nothing more than a figment of his imagination. And then, in a surprising twist, a figure walked into the courtroom. A woman dressed in dark clothing with an enigmatic presence that seemed to shift the very light around her. She introduced herself as Luna, a self-proclaimed shadow expert. "I've been following the case," she said, her voice calm and measured, "and I can confirm the existence of the shadow collector. Many believe he can siphon shadows through a dark ritual." The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Was this woman for real? Luna explained how shadows were tied to emotions, fears, and memories. "When a shadow is taken, it leaves a void, a darkness in the soul of the individual," she stated. "I can help Mr. Hargrove reclaim his shadow." Harold's eyes widened, hope igniting within him. Could it be true? In a dramatic turn of events, Luna promised to perform a ritual that would lead them to the shadow collector. The judge, intrigued yet cautious, granted her request. As preparations began for the ritual, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. A sense of anticipation filled the air. Would they truly uncover the elusive shadow collector? The night of the ritual arrived, and the courtroom was dimly lit. Luna stood at the center, surrounded by candles, her voice echoing through the hushed room as she began to chant. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a shadowy figure materialized at the back of the room. Gasps filled the air as the shadow collector stepped forward, a sly smile on his face. "I see you've come looking for me," he said, his voice smooth yet chilling. "But shadows are not easily returned." The courtroom erupted into chaos. Harold, trembling, confronted the shadow collector. "You took my shadow, I demand it back." The tension was palpable. Luna intervened, urging Harold to remain calm. "We must confront him together," she instructed, her eyes locked onto the figure before them. The shadow collector's laughter echoed, a sound that sent shivers down everyone's spines. "You think you can reclaim what you've lost? Shadows belong to the night." But with a sudden surge of bravery, Harold stepped forward. "I refuse to live in darkness. I will not be defined by what you've taken from me." The words resonated through the courtroom. The energy shifted, and the shadow collector faltered. Luna continued her chant, her voice rising above the turmoil. "Return what is rightfully his." The shadows in the room began to swirl, and with a final, powerful incantation, the atmosphere crackled with energy. In an astonishing moment, light burst through the darkness, revealing Harold's shadow flickering back into existence. The courtroom erupted into cheers, disbelief mingling with joy. The shadow collector, now weakened, retreated into the shadows, leaving behind a haunting laughter. The trial concluded with a newfound understanding of the significance of shadows, not merely as physical entities but as symbols of identity, belonging, and the battles we face within ourselves. Harold emerged victorious, but more importantly, he rediscovered a part of himself he thought he'd lost. As the townsfolk celebrated, they learned that shadows could not be stolen without consequence. And in the heart of the small town, the legend of Harold Hargrove, the man who claimed his shadow was stolen, would be passed down through the generations. What would you do in this situation? Would you fight for what defines you? In the end, it's not just about shadows, it's about the light we carry within us.